Hello, in this video we're going to look at string objects in more detail. So we're going to look at some of the functionality for replacing strings, splitting strings up. We're going to look at how we can use regular expressions with strings, how we can convert strings to arrays, and how we can convert numeric values into strings. So let's get started. In Eclipse we'll create a new Java project called More Strings. And to this we'll add a class also called More Strings. So we're going to have a main method. And inside our main method we're going to create some strings. Now you've already looked at how we can create string objects. So for example, string s1 equals So we can create a string object using a string literal, which is this here. Another way we can do it is by actually calling one of string's constructors. So new string. And there are actually a lot of constructors available for us. So we have an empty string, a bunch of constructors which take arrays, ones that take another string, and so on. So you should have a look in the documentation and have a look at how all the different ways string objects can be created. So now we have two string objects, S1 which contains welcome to Java and S2 which contains programming is fun. So let's have a look at some of the other methods we can use to modify our strings. The first one we're going to look at is called replace. So I'm going to put all these inside print line statements so we can see the result immediately. So replace can be used to swap all the characters in our string with a different character. So for example, s1 dot replace. So you can see here we have an old character with the new character. So what we can do, for example, is replace all of the instances of the character E with an exclamation mark, which is also a character. So if we run this now, you can see that all of the E's in our string, all of the E characters, and in this case there are only two, have been converted to an exclamation mark. That example may be a little bit trivial, but actually replacing characters in a string is very useful. What if, for example, you needed to convert different line endings or something like that, or convert to uppercase, or there are all manner of practical uses for the replace method. Next up, let's look at doing a bit more complicated replacing. So again, I'm going to put all of our code inside print line statements in this video so we can see what's going on. So another thing we can do is actually replace using strings. So there are two that I want to look at. One is called replace first and the other is called replace all. So we need another string that contains some repeated elements. So s3 equals Java, 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 like that. So what we're going to do is go s3 dot replace first, and this will take a string that we can pass in and then what we want to replace it with. So let's take our string Java. So that's what we're looking for in our string, and we're going to replace it with Michael. So now when we run this, you can see that replace first has done exactly what we expected. It replaced the first instance of Java, which is what we were looking for, with the string Michael. So you can imagine what replace all is going to do. It will replace all instances of a string with the new string. For example, now we get Michael, Michael, Michael. Great. So now we can replace parts of our string. And again, there are many practical uses for this. What happens if you have some data, which is a common comma-separated values type format, and you want to convert that to another format. Well, one way would be to convert all of the commas to something different. If we want a tab delimited format, for example. These are simple, trivial cases that I'm making up off the top of my head, but they are real. So, next up, what we're going to look at is the matches method. So, I'm going to put in a print line. So the matches method allows us to compare a string with a pattern. And it will return true or false depending on whether the pattern that we specify is found in our string. So let's do a very simple example to start with, and then we'll make things a little bit more complicated. So for example, I'm going to put a string literal here that says Java is fun. And then immediately call the matches method of string. And we're going to look for Java star, like that, dot star. So let's run this and see what happens. You can see it returns true. So what's actually happening here? You need to figure this out, you need to understand a little bit about regular expressions. But what this is saying is look for the string Java, and then the dot means any character and any number of characters. So we're looking for Java and then anything after that. So we can copy and paste this a couple of times. So for example, if we change this to cool and this one to powerful, we should get true printed out 3 times, and indeed we do. All 3 of these strings match java.star. Again, this dot is a special character, not actually the full stop or period symbol. So, we can get a little bit more complicated and use full-blown regular expressions for our pattern. And if you haven't done a lot with regular expressions, it's beyond the scope of this video to actually fully explain them now. But go have a look and read up on regular expressions because they're super powerful. So, for example, suppose you had a number and that number followed a specific format. Maybe it represented a barcode or a phone number, and you want to test whether that is indeed a valid phone number or a valid barcode. We can use the matches function with a regular expression to do this. For example, okay, we're going to do something similar to before, but let's make our string equal to 440-02-4534. Now this number could represent anything. Let's pretend it's a barcode. And we want to see whether this barcode is valid. So we're going to use the matches method, and we're going to use a regular expression in here. And so what we want to do is make sure that a valid barcode is one that contains 3 digits, and then a hyphen, and then 2 digits and a hyphen, and then 4 more digits. The way we're going to do this is the following. We're going to have backslash, and then a D. And then open and closing braces and a 3. So this says, does it match the pattern 3 digits? Well, the start does, but not the whole string. So what we need now is the rest of our pattern. So we have a hyphen and then backslash D 2, because we're looking for 2 digits. And then hyphen backslash D, opening closing braces with a 4. So now, when we run this, we'll see that this gets printed out as true. If we were to change our barcode or our number in any way, we get false printed out because it no longer matches the pattern. This is an incredibly powerful tool. And what's even more amazing or more useful is that replace first and replace all also work with regular expressions. It doesn't have to be a simple string like what we used here. It can be a regular expression. So I strongly suggest you learn how regular expressions work. The last thing we want to do is convert our string to something like a character array. This is very useful if we want to send data across a network on all manner of things. And the way we do this is with our string. So let's get our character array. And the way we convert this is by going our string. So let's use s2 dot to char array. So it creates a new character array with each element in the array being one of our characters. So now we can loop over this. Of course, I have a typo. Okay, so let's run this, and you'll see each character printed out onto its own line. So, and there it is. So with that, that's it for this video. We've learnt some of the more advanced functionality of dealing with strings, such as replacing strings, splitting strings, comparisons using regular expressions, converting to arrays, and converting numeric values to strings, which we should probably do now. It's very easy. If we have a number and we want to convert that to a string, then, excuse me, it's actually very simple. So the way that we can do this in Java, so we want to convert a number to a string. So we can't do string s4 equals 12. This is a compilation error because it's a type mismatch, cannot convert an int to a string object. However, we can take advantage of the string concatenation operator. So if we go 12 plus an empty string, Java will automatically convert this to a string for us. So we can print out S4 now. And run our program, and somewhere along here 12 will be printed out. There it is. So now we've covered everything. We've looked at all of these things, some of the more advanced functionality of string objects. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.